From the Fox Studios in New York City, this is Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street.
Happy weekend to all. Welcome to the program that analyzes the week that was and helps position you for the week ahead. I'm Maria Bartiromo. President Biden underwater on key issues ahead of November's presidential election. New Fox News poll shows that voters overwhelmingly disapprove of Biden's handling of the economy, inflation, border security, and the Israel-Hamas war.
If Biden wins again, our country is in trouble.
I grew up Democratic, but today I kind of classify as a Republican, so I'd probably side with Trump.
I just wish the economy was better. I wish Trump could come back.
I think everything's expensive. I mean, inflation is crazy right now.
It's hard to afford just everyday living. I work in a school, and what I make isn't even enough to pay my bills.
I was Democrat all my life, but now the wife and I decided to just, amidst all the confusion, just go independent. Here's the guy you want to vote for.
Even the progressive mainstream media admits Biden's campaign is in trouble. Listen to this.
Frankly, for the Joe Biden campaign, these numbers are an absolute disaster. The smallest lead is in Arizona for Donald Trump. He's up 6. Look at this, 9 in Georgia, 13 in Nevada. My goodness gracious, my God. That is a huge lead. No Democrat has lost that state since John Kerry lost it back in 2004.
When voters were specifically asked to choose between Biden and Trump on who they trust more on top issues, 87% trust the former President Trump on the economy. More than 84% say he's better on immigration. The White House is feeling the heat from both sides of the aisle on the border. President Biden reportedly planning an executive action now that would allow him to shut the border down after migrant crossings reach 4,000 a day. Joining me now is North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. Congresswoman, it's great to see you this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria, for having me.
Give us your reaction to these polls and now Biden wanting to do this executive order even after 4,000 people come in illegally a day.
Well, he doesn't need to do an executive order. All he needed to do when he came into office was keep the Trump policies in place, and he wouldn't be in this situation. Maria, we've been talking about this ever since President Biden took office. He promised to do this. The American people should have believed him. But this is what we hear when we're at home, and this is what we know. Inflation is killing the American people. The open border is a disaster. And he doesn't need to do any executive orders, just abide by the laws that exist, enforce the laws that exist. That's what we've been telling him. He's been trying to fool the American people into blaming this on the Congress, saying we need to pass more laws. Well, the House did pass a law, H.R. 2, over a year ago, and they wouldn't take it up in the Senate. But there's no new laws needed. The president has the authority to do what he needs to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the week that he walked into the Oval Office, he overturned all of the security at the border, which President Trump had in place. But, Chairwoman, I want to talk to you about the mark that you have made in this country, which is so significant as the chairwoman of the House Education Committee. You've done so much, along with House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. And the two of you sent a letter to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen asking for her reports on nearly 24 organizations connected to funding anti-Semitic encampments and protests on college campuses. Congressman Comer was with me this week, and here's what he said on Thursday. Watch.
We're trying to follow the money, much like we've done in the Biden family investigation. We're trying to identify bank accounts that we can subpoena to see who's paying for many of these campus protests, voter registration drives, things to influence the election.
So, Congresswoman, tell us what you want to see happen, and who do you think is funding this? And has the Treasury Secretary responded to you?
She has not yet responded, Maria, but we will not give up on this, just like we're not giving up in any of our endeavors to get to the bottom of issues and to get the truth out of this administration and out of these colleges and universities. We know there's dark money coming in to fund these protests. Look, October 8th of 2023, all of a sudden, there were these instantaneous protests with printed signs and all of this material out there available to create these protests, these anti-Semitic demonstrations, anti-Israel demonstrations, the threatening of Jewish students. That didn't happen organically on these campuses, Maria. The money came from somewhere. We want to know where it came from, and we're going to get to the bottom of this.
How much of it is the Chinese Communist Party following our debates, piling on, trying to create upset in America, and how much do you think it's liberal groups?
I think it's a combination, Maria, and that's what we have to find out. You know, we know that the Chinese want to bring down America. The Chinese want to be the predominant country in the world. They've always wanted to do that. This is not new. China has always had this ambition, and China's working with Putin now, and their number one goal is to bring down America. We cannot let this happen. These protests are anti-Semitic. That's the main thing. But they're also anti-American, Maria. And it is high time that America wakes up to see that we are having malign groups, progressive groups, which some of them are being funded, we believe, by the Chinese Communist Party, by Qatar, and other countries that want to take this country down. We cannot let that happen.
You're also holding another key hearing next week, where the heads of Northwestern, Rutgers, and UCLA called on to testify about their mishandling of the anti-Israel protests on their campuses. Northwestern University under heavy criticism right now because it did a deal with the protesters. That deal includes a free 4-year tuition for 5 Palestinian students. It provides an immediate space for Middle East and Muslim students to convene on campus, and it is offering them a house for community building. Tell me about that. What are you expecting from next week's hearing, Congresswoman?
Well, what I'd like to have from the hearings is what I've asked all the other presidents who've come in. Get a spine and speak with moral clarity. Speak about the threats to the Jewish students. These presidents who are giving in to these threats by these college students are spineless. They should not be doing this. They need to stand up for what is right, and they will have the backing of the American people. But somehow or another, our universities have lost their way, Maria. You know, I call them the most expensive universities in the country, but they are not they're not places where Americans can look to them for leadership. They are not leaders if they don't have, if they can't make the right decisions.
Yeah. Congresswoman, your work is so important, and we'll be watching your work. We so appreciate your time. Thank you for being here this weekend.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, Congresswoman Virginia Fox in D.C. The Dow hits 40,000 this week. Are more record highs ahead? Up next, market strategist Kenny Polcari on where he's putting his money to work right now. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now a look at where markets ended the week after the Dow Jones Industrial Average crossed 40,000 for the first time in history. And the S&P and the NASDAQ also hit new highs after lukewarm inflation data this week. Then you had several Federal Reserve members saying that they do not have the confidence that we're going to get to that 2% inflation target anytime soon. We're probably at higher for longer on interest rates. Joining me right now is Slate Stone Wealth Chief Market Strategist Kenny Polcari. Kenny, great to see you. And I know you've been questioning all those rate cuts now for a long time, but today you say the Dow and the S&P are overbought. Tell us more.
Well, listen, you just have to kind of look at what's happened over the last couple of weeks. We've run up once again on this multiple rate cut narrative. And now when you look at the relative strength indexes, you know, that relative strength technical indicator, you see that both the industrials as well as the S&P are just kissing that 70 level, which suggests you're getting into the overbought territory. Now, transports and the Russell and the NASDAQ are not there yet, so those kind of suggest that we're okay. But I suspect that we're going to see prices pull back a little bit. And we probably should, because we've gone straight up again on this rate cut narrative, which makes no sense to me, considering that every FOMC member that gets out there is trying to tell everybody, walk back from the edge. We're not cutting rates anytime soon. And it's, inflation is being stickier and more difficult.
Yeah, and we had 5 Fed officials on Thursday alone saying just that. They're all singing the same song at this point. Kenny, let's look ahead to next week. We've got NVIDIA earnings out on Wednesday. We've got a lot of retail coming out as well. We'll get another window into the consumer after we heard from Walmart this past week. First, big tech, NVIDIA. Would you buy this stock ahead of the numbers on Wednesday?
So I'm not buying it ahead of the numbers on Wednesday because, first, we already own it. The firm owns it. I own it. So I'm not buying any more ahead of the number. I'm really kind of waiting because it is going to be the number next week. Yes, we're going to get those other consumer reports. But let's be honest. The NVIDIA is a crowded trade. Everybody's going to be watching to listen what Jensen Huang says when he comes out with the numbers. So I think that there's a shot. I think we're looking for 545. The range goes from 495 to 565. But I think consensus is right around 545. Revenues at $24.8 billion, up 200 and some odd % year over year. So it's almost, once again, priced to perfection. If there's any sense of the slightest miss, then you could see, like anything, you'll see the trader types all of a sudden hit the sell button, the algos will hit the sell button, and you'll see a drawback, which is actually what I hope happens, because I'd like to go shopping and buy stock at a cheaper price. But I'm not buying it ahead of the earnings report.
What about overall allocating capital today? Where do you want to be positioned going into the second half of the year, as a lot of people call this market and this economy bifurcated? Nancy Lazar over at Piper Sandler says, the highest earners are doing well, but not the bottom earners. So what do you want to do in terms of allocating capital if, in fact, we see a slowdown second half?
Well, and I suspect we're going to see this slowdown coming into the summer, and then I think they're going to goose it again at the end of the year, like as we come into the election and stuff. But once again, as a long-term wealth manager, you have to be well diversified. But I would not be chasing tech here at all. We own it; it's fine. We're participating. If the market goes up, we're there. But I would be looking once again at consumer staples. Look what's happened to utilities, the most boring sector on the planet, and they're up 14.5% this year, right? As money moves into that sector, because people recognize that demand for energy is only going to increase, and there was a huge opportunity there, right? Utilities way underperformed last year, and so they're playing catch up. But I like utilities, I like consumer staples, and I like energy and financials are places I would look. I would not be chasing tech, especially as the market's making new highs. I would not be chasing tech.
All right, great analysis as always from you, Kenny Polcari. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you soon. Meanwhile, Democrats are playing the inflation blame game now. They're going after grocery stores, demanding that President Biden and the DOJ step in and take action. John Catsimatidis, the owner of 2 supermarket chains, is here with reaction next. Welcome back. Now, going after grocery stores, dozens of Democrat lawmakers, including Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, writing a letter to President Biden this week, slamming these businesses, saying this: Americans are facing sky-high food prices caused by excessive price gouging by food and grocery giants. The group is demanding that Biden take executive action, even pushing for the DOJ to get involved and prosecute companies for what they claim is price fixing and anti-competitive behavior. Gristedes and D'Agostino Supermarket CEO John Catsimatidis joins me right now with more on that. John, your reaction to these senators saying that you and your colleagues in the grocery world are price gouging. That's why we're all facing high prices at the cash register.
They are wrong, 100% wrong. I wish they would pay for our losses, especially in New York City, where we have our shrinkage rate, which is a combination of extra security and a combination of higher prices by the manufacturers, has cost us. It used to be 1.5% the rule. Now it's close to 6%. So I wish they would give us the difference between the 1.5% and 6%, and that's because of lawlessness, and it's because of the migrant crisis that they come in, they have a license to steal, and nobody does anything about it. In other words, you have criminals that have had 5 arrests, 10 arrests, 20 arrests, 30 arrests. And I've said to all our politicians, at what point do you put them away? And they don't belong living among the civilized world. You can't bring in people and just, if they're not civilized, they don't belong within the civilized world.
Yeah, I mean, look, all of this goes back to just bad policy, right? I mean, you've got a wide open border. Obviously, illegals are dominating, and they are taking over for American citizens, whether it's school kids or people who want to go get a hotel room. There aren't any. You've got migrants staying in the hotels, but it's also the spending. You had $7 trillion in borrowing and spending by the Democrats on Joe Biden's watch, including the Inflation Reduction Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, forgiveness of student loan debt, the CHIPS Act, these green energy tax cuts, all of that, the tax credits rather, all of that has led to a 40-year high inflation. And yet Joe Biden is going after the food companies. Watch this.
If you take a look at what the people have, they have the money to spend. It angers them and angers me that you have to spend more. For example, the whole idea of this notion that Senator Casey talked about, shrinkflation.
Same price for a smaller bottle of juice or something.
For example, Snickers bar, they did a thing, and it's like 20% less for the same price. That's corporate greed. That's corporate greed. And we've got to deal with it, and that's what I'm working on.
He's working on it. Corporate greed, John.
Well, I think he's 110% wrong, and I think even the minorities have started to agree to that the Hispanics, the black community, everybody, the Asian community, the prices went up on his watch. He doubled the price of oil by shutting down the pipeline, by shutting down extra production in the United States. He doubled the prices. So what happens when you double the prices of gasoline? You double the price, to deliver food to the stores, you need diesel fuel, you need gasoline. That increased the price of food. And so the price of gasoline doubled, the price of food is up 40%. Then what happens? The price of interest rates have gone up. The 30-year mortgage is over 7%. Right. I mean, the Bidenomics doesn't work. But it is, Maria, it is an election year. Yeah. He's the president of the United States. He's going to do what's possible to make November look better.
Yeah.
Well, at least by September, October. And I understand that he is negotiating with the Saudis. He is negotiating that he's going to do what he has to do to bring the price of gasoline down, which will bring the price of food down. But food is not going to drop as fast as gasoline could drop.
Yeah, well, look, obviously this administration does not understand the free market. I mean, this is about supply and demand. Too many dollars chasing too few goods. They keep spending money, and that has lifted and sent prices higher. And you're talking about oil. Look, Americans are not getting a break at the pump, certainly. The Energy Information Association reporting that gasoline price is expected to rise by about 10 cents a gallon this summer, citing falling refinery capacity. You're the head of United Refining Company, and you just said to me that this president is going to do whatever he can to get gasoline prices down by the time November shows up. What does that mean? You're saying that they're manipulating the market? Or how are they going to do that? This is market forces.
Yes, it is. Well, look, the biggest problem, he had gasoline down. He had the price of crude oil down to $68 a few months ago, Maria. I remember I was on the show. And what happened? The Iranians panicked because they make $1 zillion on gasoline because he allowed the Iranians to go from 400,000 barrels a day, Maria, to 4 million barrels a day. So that means it's a lot of money for the Iranians. The Iranians paid the Houthis to close down the Red Sea and close down the Suez Canal. There's no secrets. You close down the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, and you can't have ships going through it because they can't get insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Then the price of crude oil went up from 68 back to 78, 80 at that point. And the price has gone up.
Thanks so much, John Catsimatidis. Always great to see you this weekend. We appreciate it. All right, I've got one important thing you need to know about ahead of next week, and that's next. Welcome back. One thing you need to know ahead of next week, Boeing's Starliner spacecraft hopes to fly away next Tuesday after a helium leak delayed the launch of its first crewed mission scheduled for Friday. It's not the first time the Starliner has faced challenges. Back in December of 2019, the craft failed to reach its destination because of a computer software issue. And then another attempt in August of 2021 never got off the ground because of corroded valves. In May of 2022, the spacecraft reached the International Space Station, but it had parachute system issues. No one was aboard any of these flights. You also have Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin scheduled for its first crewed flight since 2022 on Sunday. We'll be following all of this on Mornings with Maria. Join us 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern weekdays here on Fox Business. I hope you'll join me every weekday for that. And I'll see you this weekend over on Sunday on the Fox News Channel, 10 a.m. Eastern live for Sunday Morning Futures. I've got exclusive interviews this weekend with South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, as well as Florida Congressman Anna Paulina Luna and Byron Donalds. That's live on Fox News Channel, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. That'll do it for us here on Fox Business. Thank you so much for joining us this weekend. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you again next time.